this Saturday night. I hope you're doing good. Well, I tell you what, we've had some really lousy weather for about 2 months straight, and it's gotten nice this week finally. So I definitely out here making the video in the truck, out enjoying the outdoors while I worked all day out in it. Now I'm gonna make my video in my truck. I may make a video tonight if the wind dies down a little bit more. But anyway, tonight's live stream is going to be about spending our way into prosperity. The new one big bill that's coming down and how it's ridiculous. Okay, we're going to discuss that tonight because I'm sick and tired of us spending money or borrowing money from our unborn children so we can continue living our lifestyle. I've had it with that. That stuff has got to stop. So we're going to discuss that. By the way, I got to sit there and make small talk for a couple minutes so YouTube can send out notifications and people show up and stuff. So if you want to fast forward into the video a couple minutes when we'll start the subject, that's fine. Anyway, back on the farm for a couple days. Had to work on my yard, which I've been doing. Tomorrow I'm going to mow it. It's looking good. It used to be all weeds, but my yard's starting to look good. I'm happy about it. So, but come Monday, I'll be back up there in the sand hills, out in the pastures fencing, making videos out there. So hope everybody enjoys that. But I kind of like working in one area and living in another area. I can get used to this. You know, if I can make a living at it, I like this. You know, when it's getting away from work, you're really getting away from work and you're going home. So I really enjoy it. But boy, is it a beautiful couple days. Tomorrow's even going to be nicer. It's about time. It's really been crappy for the last few months. But anyway. All right, we're 2.5 minutes into this. Let's get into the subject. Spending our way into prosperity, okay, with this new one big bill. I did a short on this, and I had a comment of somebody who got upset, obviously a Trump supporter, saying, well, look at what the Democrats do. See, I know both sides do it. But just because the Republicans are in charge now and they get to determine how the money's spent doesn't mean it's right if we add to the deficit and stuff, you know. But anyway, the point I was trying to make is both sides are doing it. But our unborn generations are funding our lifestyle. That's what's going on. We can't even pay back the debt in probably 3 generations for sure. If we really started paying on the debt, to pay the debt down to zero that this country owes. Level up. Do you have Pokemon? No, I don't. No, a little too old for that type of stuff. But anyway, we keep borrowing money from our unborn generations. I mean, I don't know how they do this. We have countries that won't buy our debt no more. I guess the Federal Reserve is buying it under the pretense. I mean, that I guess we're going to have 400 million workers in this country in 10 years, and we're going to be creating all this revenue and stuff and whatever. I mean, can you imagine? Now let's compare to this what our government does to the way you run your home. You're going to spend your way into prosperity. You're going to go to the bank, and the bank's got to give you a loan because you're going to spend more money so you can become more prosperous and go in more in debt, okay? The bank would laugh at you, kick you out of there, and definitely say no to you, right? And that's what our government does. But our government has a few aces in its pocket. For one, they can print their own money out of nothing now, out of complete nothing. I mean, they don't even print it no more. It's just a lot of ones and zeros lately. So that's one advantage they got, okay? And then remember, who pays the government's bills? We do. So I win. But we can't continue doing this, and both sides are doing this. This is crazy. Well, you can't spend your way into prosperity. Our country has been trying to do this for a long time, but definitely since 2008, they've been trying to do this with the quantitative easing. Passing all these, when Obama got into office and passing all these high dollar bills that would give money to industry and stuff and give maybe 5% of it, they throw a little caveat in for the average citizen where they get a little check in the mail. Remember those days? It's trying to spend our way into prosperity. How's it leading now? We're going to about $2-3 trillion a year in debt. If you ran your household like that, you would be arrested for fraud, definitely. We want to get Letitia James and stuff for fraud, mortgage fraud and all this stuff, right? Well, government's doing the same thing. Anyway, you can't spend your way into prosperity. And now we're just going to have one big bill, one big Band-Aid fix that's going to fix nothing for no time at all. I mean, anybody gone to the store lately? Okay. Has anybody gone to the store lately and seen prices go up? I mean, I go get a chicken sandwich, a plain chicken sandwich, and a 16-ounce milk, and it's $9. $9? Really? The way I live it, the economy would completely crash before it would affect me to where I couldn't buy it. And believe me, people would be in the streets long before it would affect me. But $9, that's what the average person is paying? So you go into a convenience store now with a family of, let's say, 2 adults and 3 children, and you fill up with gas, and the kids each get something to eat and drink, and the parents do. You're spending $110, $120 at the convenience store every time you stop for gas. Woo! Stuff is getting nuts. But don't worry. We're going to have one more big bill. We're going to spend our way into prosperity. We're going to make everything the money worthless, so everything goes up in price. It's just going to take more greenbacks to buy the same thing. What's it going to be next week? $10? I don't see anybody's wages going up, but if people's wages did go up, like inflation's going up, well, then inflation would just go up faster because prices would go up faster. Anyway, I don't like our government borrowing from our unborn generations. Who does that to somebody? Like I say, that's like somebody getting a credit card with their kid's social security number. That's about as low down as you can do. But I guess since they're not born yet, we won't be alive when these citizens are going to have to pay it back. We're safe, right? And like I say, both sides do it. Reagan was the first one to go take this country $1 trillion into debt. I believe that was October 16th, 1983. I believe that was the date. Okay? Look how far we've come since then. I guess that was just the barrier that had to be broken for the dam just to completely, and total economic theory went out the window. Spend our way into prosperity. Okay. There's no reason why our unborn generation should have to pay for our lifestyle. If we can't afford it, we don't live it. In your home, if you can't afford something, the more you got to tighten your belt, right? I mean, if you got to go without cable or that brand new car or whatever the case may be, something you really want, but you go without it because you got to tighten your belt. You have to use the debt to create income, not bills. Well, That's not the way I live. I'm a cash man. I have no debt. I have my car insurance and my cell phone bill. That's it. And I have plenty of income. That thing nice about me is if I want something, I go buy it and I pay cash for it, and I don't have any debt. Okay, anybody who thinks debt is a good thing is retarded. Okay, I lived that life where I was in a lot of debt, and I just happened to get a lot of money at one time. I got lucky once, and I paid off all my debt. Been a cash man ever since. A lot less stress. I can live on next to nothing. Can anybody here on this live chat right now live on $600 to $800 a month? That's it. My options are wide open. If I don't like a job, I can go quit. I started my own little business where I go fencing for these ranchers because nobody else wants to do it. I get to travel the country and, determine how much I want to make. If I want to bust my ass because I really want something, I go for it. If things are easy, I can take it easy. I have a really flexible life. I mean, I can't understand how people would have a car payment where they're paying $800 for their car payment and $200 for insurance. So they're paying $1,000 a month just to look at the car. Don't use your debt to get you into more. Well, this is the thing too. And when you go into debt, let's say you're going to go into debt, borrow money for something that's going to be worth more when you got it done paid off. Instead of taking a car loan out and it depreciates every year, and by the time you get done paying your loan off, it's worth nothing. I mean, at least if you're going to go into debt that something's going to make you money in the end. Land's a good thing. Okay. Yeah, well, using debt to make money, then you just go into more debt wanting to make more money. It's just an endless cycle. I like being a cash man. I like being a poor man. It makes life a lot easier because, you have money as well as, I've had them jobs that were really good and lucrative, and I had a house and another piece of property and stuff. And it's amazing. All of a sudden you're on every charity list there is. Your phone rings for that. Every police station and fire department in the area. I don't know how that happens. You get punished and pay a shit ton in taxes. And I just started adding up how many hours I worked extra just to sit there and pay the government, pay this and that. It wasn't worth it in the end. Okay. Yeah. It wasn't worth it. Having money just means that you got 100 people wanting to get the last quarter out of your pocket. I don't want to, deal with that shit. Happiness, I like to be in a happy, humble, simple person. There's enough to worry you have to deal with when our government is robbing from us and having to deal with all those social engineering that's going on in this country, all the crazy stuff. I have to. I'm 35 and have kids. That's true. I was 35. I did the trenches. I'm 57 now. My kids are all grown and having kids themselves. I get to spoil the grandkids. That's another thing in my life. When your kids leave your house, when you're not raising your children no more and you're divorced from your wife, it's like all that responsibility you had through the years when you were in the trenches, and when you're raising kids and you're working your ass off and dealing with your spouse, and you got to make, that's the years you're in the trenches. Those are the years you need to make it through together, stay together. Because once you get out of the trenches, you have money, you have time, and there's nothing better than you can have time for each other. Okay? But yeah, I spent my time in the trenches. And now I'm like out here, and it's like, and with having no debt, I can just be like an 18-year-old, and I'll sit there and take a job. It's not like my phone rings all the time for people that want me to do it, but it's I got plenty of job security, but I can do it at my pace. I'm not going to get caught up in the fast-paced world we live in. Okay, I'm sick of that. I want to slow down, and when I'm driving, I don't drive fast anymore. I observe everything. A lot of my shorts I have where I'm, out there just interacting with nature. It's great being peaceful out there. Anyway, like and subscribe if you would, please, to the channel. Hit that bell notification. Fighting YouTube and stuff. They don't, for some reason, they don't like content like this. If you spread mental illness and hate and discontent and the sky is falling type of stuff, they love that type of stuff. People may say, well, you kind of do the sky is falling. No, I say what's coming, but the people can always turn it around. We can band together and always turn it around. Okay? When the people realize who the enemy is, they talk about tax cuts, right? Okay. If they're really giving tax cuts, then how come the revenue that the federal government takes in every year increases every year? A nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. Well, if you found one that was actually made of silver, it would be worth a lot more than a nickel or a dime. That's what Rome did. When their coins were actual silver and gold. And when their economy started collapsing, they were putting their coins, it'd be 50% gold and 50% another metal. But they said it was still worth the same, to where barely there was any type of real metal in the coins. We've basically gone to where there isn't nothing silver or gold anymore. You know why there's ridges on the coins, right? We don't need them on these coins, but they had them on coins when they were silver and gold. They had those ridges on the side to make sure nobody was flaking pieces off the gold piece or the silver piece. Yeah, money used to be a lot different than it is now, but it used to be worth something. And people knew it was worth something. Why did your mother name you conservative? I'm just a small town boy, okay? I grew up working hard on a farm and stuff. I grew up poor when people actually were poor back then, and we were nothing but conservative. My parents wouldn't take handouts, okay? And having kids, when I was younger, yeah, I had somebody actually called me a communist one time. When I was talking to him, he goes, no, that's communist way of thinking. And like they say, up until you're 25, if you're not a Democrat, you don't have a heart. And if you're a Democrat after that, you don't have a brain. Once you start having kids and you enter the real world and you're working and you're in the trenches like you are, rearing your kids and your family, and you realize that nobody's coming there to save you, you're on your own, well, you're fighting with your wife, having a bad day at work, and your kids are destroying the house. But you love your family, and you'd rather have that than be by yourself. Okay? But, yeah, I remember them days. Anyway. Oh, how's everybody? I'm sorry, I haven't been watching the chat. But anyway, I just kind of walked away from the system. I'm trying to live a life where I don't have to interact with the system at all. Being a Marine, I can go to the VA if I have to go to the doctor, but I don't ever have to go to the doctor. I haven't been to the doctor in many, many years. Very healthy individual. I'm lucky that way. And I don't want to be a burden on anybody else. I definitely don't want anybody else to have to pay for my way, especially kids that aren't even born yet. Anyway, all we do is we got Republicans in charge now, and they're okay for this spending. Anytime we add to the deficit, why can't we get something that was lower than last year's budget was? Been listening to you for a while now. Well, you don't seem like most modern conservatives. No, I'm not. I'm a founding father conservative. I don't believe conservatives should tell a Democrat how to live their life any more than a Democrat should tell a conservative how to live their life. In this country, you're allowed to pursue your happiness. The government was to ensure that by staying out of your life, not in your bedroom, not in your schools, not in your tractor, not in your semi, not with your electric bill. Okay? If patriot's a bad thing, then I'm a bad person. But I'm fighting for all Americans. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was only there to support people and defend people that I thought like me. That thought never crossed my mind. You're an American. The average American's not my enemy. The average American's not going to show up at my house at 6 a.m. with a no-knock raid shooting me down like the FBI and ATF do. What these police departments and sheriff's departments allow to happen. Okay, I know who my enemy is. My enemy is the office that he occupied that threatened Americans with nuclear weapons, F-15s, and Hellfire missiles. Okay? I know who my enemy is. And they sit there and take our money and just spend it so stupidly. God. One big bill. One big bill. What's this one going to be up to? And then there's going to be pork in there. Remember, every senator and congressman and Supreme Court justice has plenty of lobbyists. I still don't understand why a Supreme Court judge needs a lobbyist, because he's supposed to interpret the Constitution. Because I don't think the lobbyists really care what the Constitutions have to say. Anyway, but yeah, I'm not a modern conservative, because it's the same, two different wings of the same bird. Once the other party gets in the office, then they start doing what they were complaining that the other party was doing. Just wait till the end of Trump's presidency when the pardons start coming out, because Joe Biden has made a precedent now. And it's amazing. How come the president always has to pardon so many of his friends and buddies? It's just amazing. They're all crooks. Yeah, they got to pardon their friends and buddies. Why? Because they're crooks? Us on the outside here, if, we're hanging out with somebody we don't really know about them, and they're kind of on the shady side, and the cops know that you're hanging out with them, you're guilt by association. This two-tiered system that we live in has got to stop, okay? Politicians are not above the law. They should be held more stricter to the law than the average citizen, or just as strict as the average citizen. But if they screw up, they get punished harder. Okay, you want to pass an unconstitutional law and sign on that and it comes down that was unconstitutional, like anything dealing with gun control, any law dealing with gun control is unconstitutional, shall not be infringed. I realize if you had 20 years of college, you probably don't understand what that means. But the average citizen does know what that means, okay? Anyway, they're just going to spend us into stupidness. I mean, what happens to a home when it goes into debt too much? What happens? What happens to a home when the money problems start getting too much? What happens? The home splits up, right? Mom goes one way, dad goes the other way, they hate each other, and the kids are stuck in the middle. I hate money, okay? To be honest with you, when I was in the Marine Corps, my late teens and early 20s when I traveled the world, and I got to experience and see a lot that affected me. And I got to see what money does in the world, and it's not good. It's not good. And back then when the dollar used to be worth something, I realized us being as rich a country as we were, we just be able to sit there and do what we want in other countries. But back then the peso was like 125 pesos to the dollar. Now was it 20 pesos to the dollar? Well, if a dollar's losing that type of power, we don't have, and that was the authority and the power we used all over the world to sit there and get our way. Well, it sounds like things aren't going to be going too well for us in the future. I mean, they're just kicking the can down the road as they say that. It's no longer a can. It's a 10,000-gallon gas barrel with a stick of dynamite in it with the fuse lit. We are going to become a third world country overnight. Overnight. The transformation is going to be crazy. The dollar wasn't as good as your generation, as the generation before. They have more opportunities in Gen X. People are getting tired of it. They had more opportunities than Gen X. Yeah, I know. Well, let's look at it. Since the Federal Reserve was taken over, the dollar has lost almost 99% of its buying power in 112 years. 99%. I know. The baby boomers, that's why a lot of them are rich and successful. That's why, and that was just with dad working a 40-hour week, remember? Now we got both parents working, and we can't have the life we did. I know, because I can see my kids struggling worse, working harder, longer hours and getting paid more than me and the mother of my children did. I know it's harder. It's just going to be harder for the next generation. Well, look, we're spending their future. See, people don't realize we are spending money in this country now that this country is not going to make for the next 35 years. Okay? We've already spent money. Okay. And we keep doing it because no politician wants to cut welfare. Well, when we turn into a third world country and the dollar really isn't worth nothing, there isn't going to be welfare anyway. Name one third world country that has welfare. Okay? You're either rich or you're poor. I've been to them. I've seen them. And America is not ready for that type of lifestyle. Not even close. Bring jobs back to America. Exactly. But remember, in the late 80s and 90s, all these politicians and big business owners got together and say, hey, if we move manufacturing out of the United States, we can make a lot more money and we can become a consumer society instead of a manufacturing society. Okay, and everybody went into more debt to maintain that consumer society type setup. This is where all the debt's coming from. If we were a manufacturing type society again, where we made our goods in this country, we had good manufacturing jobs, and people were able to put money in the bank again, save money, It's not designed that way because people had too much freedom. They realized with the baby boomers, with them making all that money they did and having a nice retired life that they did, they realized that they had too much independence and control of their own lives. Remember, they want to control us from cradle to the grave. In California, it's a joke. People do crimes and there's no consequences. Yeah. If you shoplift under $1,000, it's not a crime. So you tell me in California, Jeff, do you actually see people walking out of Walmart with 2 full carts of stuff and they don't get stopped? I actually heard a story once. I think it was a Target, though, where the lady walked out with the stuff and then, but she took her cart back. And then she left her phone in the cart and went back to her car and noticed her phone was gone and went back and demanded her phone back, and they gave her phone back after she had just walked out with a cart full of stuff. But don't worry, you better wear your seatbelt. You better pay your taxes. You better pay your insurance. Okay? You better not look at a cop wrong in California. I'm in Florida. We don't play that shit. You got shot, pretty much anything here. I love Sheriff Grady Judd. I love watching his videos. If I ever move to Florida, I'm moving to that man's county. My first wife was from Rockledge, Florida, on the other side, on the east side of Florida, there by Cape Canaveral and stuff, Cocoa Beach and stuff. But I got to go to Epcot Center and Universal Studios, but that was back in the early 90s and stuff. I tell you what, I got to go golfing in Florida with my wife's first wife's family. Teeing off at tee box, and there's an alligator no more than 10 feet from the tee off box. Oh, don't worry about him. He's fine. Yeah, I tell you what, that's the nice thing about traveling. I tell you, you get to see all different parts of the world. To live a life where you never leave more than 200 miles from where you live. I've circled the globe, but even in the United States, I just like going places. That's why I like the job I have. I can take a job 1,000 miles away, or I can take a job that's 2 hours away. I see people stealing all the time, and nobody does anything. The workers told me that if owners don't care, why should we? If you call the cops, it's a joke because no one shows up. Yeah. How are we going to allow this stuff? You're allowing this criminality to go forward, right? Nobody's learning it has having to suffer any consequences for it. I mean, talk about, and these are adults. I guess shoplifting went out the window in California. But, whatever, when California's blown away in the wind because everybody left there because nobody could afford to live there, I mean, how is Governor Newsom going to hand out the taxpayers' money when there's no taxpayers there? I mean, no one gets paid enough to stop shoplifting from these giant corporations who will replace these employees in a second. Yeah. Well, see, where I'm at, that doesn't happen. Where I'm at here in Nebraska, you get called on. You wouldn't be allowed to do it. The cops would get called. If you try to steal a piece of gum here yet, still. Like it used to be. And you don't have the mentality where people are going to do that anyway. I mean, even in Ogallala, that's turning into a liberal city, a famous cowboy town. But they got a Walmart there. And nobody there would even think about doing that because they would get stopped. Okay? They'd be pointed out. Anyway, they wouldn't be allowed to get away with it. The cops out here told me they arrested at 9 a.m. By the time they have lunch, the criminals are back on the street. Lots of blacks were alive. Yeah, well, what do you do? Like I say, what's my incentive to follow the law? Now, I respect other people. I obey the 10 Commandments, okay? But when it comes to, laws that are senseless, like all this property tax you got to put so you can put a sticker on your vehicle. and all this stuff to drive down the road legally and stuff, right? And these people are driving down the road, no insurance, no license, no registration. If they get pulled over, these illegals, they got to let them go. My sheriff told me that. INS won't come up and do nothing. They got to let them go. With rural communities, drugs, and a hug, nuisance still. Scrap metal and everything. Yeah, well, we don't have that here. I mean, when you talk rural, you're probably not thinking as rural as we are, where you have less than 2,000 people in the whole county, okay? Where you have one town where the county seats in, you have one sheriff, three deputies, and one state trooper that handles 3 separate counties around the area, okay? That's all the cops we have. It's a lot different out here. If you don't belong here, the citizenry don't have a problem making sure everybody's informed, okay? I mean, I work 2.5 hours north of here. I don't have to lock my house. I don't have to pull the keys out of my vehicle. And I know everything will be fine when I come back home. That's the area I live in. Those areas still exist in the United States. And we don't allow that trash in here. We don't have a problem telling them they're weird, they don't fit in. It's better for them just to leave. We're not going to accept it. You're going to have to act normal, okay? We don't have a problem calling mental illness out here, okay? We don't have a problem speaking the truth still, okay? And then the county I work in, that's a really big county. It's probably got less than 1,200 people in it. Okay? Isolated. You just don't have those issues. The only people that live out there are hardworking individuals that are independent and are self-sufficient. You're lucky if you go to town once a week. Usually it's once every 2 weeks you go to town. And the town you go to has a little town of 2,000 or less people. A lot of these towns around here, even though they have a grocery store, only about 500 people. Perks keep peeking in your window. Oh, yeah. Newscomb is the biggest joke ever. He's leaving office, and this year and Harris will take over. Say a prayer for us. Oh, you know why I won't go to California? Okay, I was there when I was in the service. I had spent some time at Camp Pendleton and 29 Palms doing training and stuff. But you got to stop. When they started the fruit fly thing and all the inspections, remember that, where they had to stop every car for the fruit fly? That was back in the 70s. Guess what? They're still stopping every car. It's like going into another country. Are you nuts? I will never go into that state again. I mean, it's just, and then you're driving in the state, it looks like garbage trucks opened their back ends up and just drove down the highway, garbage everywhere. All these people that are on county assistance, put them to work. But then there probably wouldn't be enough room in the landfill. And then coming down Interstate 80 in the Sacramento and you can see the air. Nah. That's not for me, okay? Like I say, I'm a founding father conservative. I like the type of crowdedness they had back then. Further you get away from somebody, the happier you could be and the more prosperous you could be. That's my system. Anyway, hey, if you guys hit the like, to subscribe, if you like the content, hit that bell notification. Help spread the word. Check out my shorts on my channel. You might enjoy them. And share them out. Say I'm trying to get this channel to grow. This is one. We can prevent the future they're trying to bring. Remember, the people still have the power. They just forgot about that. The politicians somehow hijacked where the power came from. They don't. The citizen doesn't realize where their position is in this country, in this government. Okay, it's not just voting once every 2 years. Okay. All lives matter. Black Lives Matter is a very segregated thing to say. Wouldn't you say? I believe all lives matter. And if you got a problem with that, then you mean that my life doesn't matter. I'm not going to get caught into the race stupid stuff because that's ignorance. Ignorance. Hating somebody and feeling you're different from somebody because of your skin color is the lowest common denominator that you can be divided by. And only a fool would fall for it. Okay? Anyway, I don't like that. You know, this is the thing with YouTube. They see that stuff. If Google was in here right now seeing that stuff, they can penalize my channel for that. And you got trolls in there doing that. I get trolled all the time. I get my life threatened. It's amazing. I'm trying to sit there and get people to come together to solve our problems, and I got people creating hate and discontent. Like I say, on my channel, there's freedom of speech. You can come on this channel and act like a complete retard. Hey, more power to you. If that's the path you want to take and that's the way you want me to look at you as somebody that I can't even discuss, have an intelligent conversation with, because like I say at the beginning of the video, before I start out, I have to say, select, no, this is not for children. This video is not for children. Well, I still, I guess, have children coming in here, whether they be a 30-year-old child or whatever, but the mentality's still there. Oh, you like my shirt? Yeah. This was off my first channel on YouTube that YouTube canked. They gave me the Alex Jones treatment. They buried me under the prison, canceled my email and everything. If you click this video for children, it will turn off the comments automatically. I don't make videos for kids anyway. Okay. I want to talk to adults. Okay. I'm not going to be on YouTube talking to children. Now, if I were to sit there and be reading a children's book, or like the shorts I used to make on my old channel playing piano, well, YouTube would automatically put that for kids. I don't know why. I didn't have a choice. That's the way they would do it. Sounds like, honestly, I appreciate this a lot. Do you like men? No. I don't like human beings. But, you know, let's just say that, no, I'm heterosexual. But after 3 marriages, I decided that if I want happiness and prosperity and live to be a long time and be able to ride horse whenever I want and do that type of stuff, I'll stay single. Okay, I got my children. It comes to the point where it's time to spoil my grandkids, and maybe one time the right one will come around. But I need somebody. Okay, this is why I have a trouble finding a woman, because I need somebody who's would be happy living next to a stream in a dugout with my horses and dogs out in the middle of nowhere, not reliant on society whatsoever. I'm the Lone Wolf. My other channel is Lone Wolf Prepper Lives. That's what that is. Lone Wolf Prepper. Okay, I got a big, on the back of the shirt, it's got a big one that's covered the whole back of the shirt. What's the question of the day? Oh, the question of the day today was, what we're discussing now, about feeling guilty about borrowing money from generations that weren't born yet. But yeah, I'm just a human fortune cookie, I guess. I tell you what, I almost went a full year on my other channel with the thought of the day, and I dated it every day. And I didn't have a backup to it, but I wish I did, because I was thinking if I make like a diary book or the thought of the day for every day. And then that was your page in the diary. And just, I had an idea about it and stuff. What state are you in? I'm in Nebraska, the Panhandle in Nebraska. I live down here in the southern part of Panhandle, Nebraska, 12 miles from the Colorado border, out in the wheat fields and stuff. And I work up in the northern part of the sand hills, or the Panhandle and the sand hills in Nebraska, and the isolated part of Nebraska. So anyway, I like it. I'm enjoying this stuff. What do you think of California? I'm never going to go there. I was there enough, and I'm afraid if I go there, I'll never get out of there. I'll say something wrong to the wrong person. You got to be politically correct to be in that state, or you may just get arrested. And I'm not exactly what you'd call the most politically correct person. Hi from Canada. Well, how's it going up there in Canada? What part of Canada are you from? That country's changing too. You realize when our economy crashes, all of our illegals are going to start going further north, right? Oh, pay us $7 for a gallon of gas. I heard rent out there for houses are $10,000 a month, or $8,000 to $10,000 a month. How does somebody afford that? How can you pay even an $8,000 a month rent payment and not be able to afford to buy a house? I mean, $8,000 in rent is 1 year's of rent for one place out here. You can pick a place up, a house in town cheaper, and you can buy a car. See, where's all the money coming from? They're printing all this money. See, this is the thing. When they print all this money, right, it's got to go into circulation. They just can't print it and it sits there. It's got to go into circulation. It's got to change hands. Okay? And they're just putting it into, we're just paying more for stuff. That's how they're putting it in circulation. Oh, God. It's just, like I say, if you ran your house like this, you'd have been done divorced, lost everything, been sued, wages garnished, you name it, in jail probably. And we just allow our government to do it with no repercussions. I mean, the government wants something, they're just going to spend the money on it, whether they got to sit there and tax it out of us or whether they just got to print it out of thin air. Okay, what future is this for our children? Like I say, if we don't give our children a future to live, how can they be the future of our country? I mean, talk about college debt. These kids that aren't even born, as soon as they turn 18, they're going to have a huge debt that the government incurred on them with deficit and stuff. I mean, we all got to pay this back. So I hope everybody's ready to work real hard, because we got a huge ass bill to pay. And they won't stop spending money and won't stop adding to that bill, because they seem to have an endless bank that won't stop lending them money. I mean, just think about going to a bank and saying, I'm going to spend my way into prosperity, Mr. Banker. You got to lend me $1 million, and I'm going to go $2 million in debt, and I'll pay you back. It's just simple economics. It doesn't work, okay? When you spend more than you make, anybody who starts living on their own knows that that doesn't work. That's why parents try to teach their kids to balance checkbooks, to live within their means. I always told my kids they didn't want to learn skills like working on their own cars and stuff. I said, fine, you better make more money then, because you're going to have to pay somebody else to do it. But now, who can afford to sit there and pay a mechanic $100 an hour when you're making even $25 an hour? And you got to sit there and work, 5 days to pay to get your car fixed? Like I say, $9 today for a chicken sandwich and a 16 ounce milk. But don't worry, gas was under $3 a gallon. But I still spent more at the store than I normally did because the chicken sandwich was more and the milk was more. Anyway, I just don't understand how the average American can't see it, no matter what side you're on. So, anyway, oh, it's a beautiful evening out tonight. No wind finally again, too. It's been months. The wind has just blown and blown. Anyway, that's all I got for this evening, but we got to stop this. You got to call your congressman and say, hey, no more spending money that we don't have. We need to lower the budget, downsize government. We can't afford the president to have the cabinet the size he has. We don't need the government. Every time he adds another cabinet position, we got the government in our lives some more. Our bedroom, our tractor, our semi, our schools, our hospitals. The wind isn't the only thing blowing. Am I blowing? See, that's the nice thing. You know, I say this is a free speech platform, this channel is. I can even come in here and make a fool of myself. It's my choice. It's my right. And I'll exercise that right. Eventually, I'd like to be on YouTube making people laugh. Well, I have so many ideas. But, you know, you need the greenbacks. And but I have a lot of ideas. I love to make people laugh. Lots of love. Apollo Beach. Oh my goodness. Trump 2028. Yeah, you people that say Trump 2028. Okay, if he's able to run a third term, you realize he'll be running against Obama in 2028 when Obama runs for his third term then, right? Okay, so when you say Trump 2028, remember who he'll be running against. So anyway, play one of those ideas on us. Good gracious, Trump. Anyway, I'm all for J.D. Vance. Like I said, I'm a J.D. Vance fan for 2028. He started off his adult world like I did. And those little yellow footprints at boot camp in the Marine Corps, got out in NCO like I did. I was in the infantry, though. He was the ground side. He wasn't in the ground side, but, you know, I guess he did something with audio. I don't exactly know what he did. But anyway, that's where he started, okay? Like I said, I want to see J.D. Vance shooting skeet in the backyard of the White House. That would be awesome, but then his wife gets up and kicks his ass as she shoots. Anyway, that would be so good. I mean, that would be great to see that, but it'll never happen. I would like to see it. So anyway, I like Bernie Sanders. Well, you know, Bernie, he got robbed from Hillary back in 2016. You know, I'm not a Bernie Sanders fan because, well, he's not the biggest communist in the country. Even though he went to Russia on his honeymoon and stuff, I realize that, but I still believe Tim Walz and Kamala Harris were the number one and number two communists in this country. Thank God they weren't able to manipulate the vote in their favor. Anyway, crazy. So, anyway, but the thing, you know why communism fails? Because people are not common, for number one. We're all individuals. And being individuals, we're all not created equal. And what I mean by, in a communist system, you need everybody to have the same ambition, same work ethic, all this, right? In a true communist system, especially the ones that are leading the communist system. And they need to know that they're just as subject to the rest of them. But see, that's what doesn't happen. Okay? And you can't live off of social programs. That takes the incentive out of everything. If I work harder than this guy and this guy's receiving what I'm receiving, well, why don't I just sit there and work less? See, the productivity goes down, the incentive goes down, you have rationing. Okay, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. Okay, I knew why communism was bad. I remember seeing the movies, like people trying to escape East Berlin, however they could to get over the Berlin Wall. Okay? All I know is in communist countries, they shoot you if you try to leave. In free countries, they don't. In communist countries, they put walls up to keep people in, not keep people out. Understand? Okay. Anyway, but, you know, and then the communist system just spends money they don't have. That's why the Soviet Union went belly up. Name me one communist country that's ever lasted. Name one. What happened in the 1930s in Russia because of communism? Because of the collective farms and stuff? What happened? Starvation. Okay. And then the thing about communism that's just really bad is if you don't think like them, they think you're their enemy. No, I just don't think like you do. I'm not your enemy. But see, that's the way they think. Okay? And that's why they sit there and got to sit there and try to repeat stuff and try to pound it into people's head. Remember that movie Volunteers with John Candy and Tom Hanks? When they went as missionaries out to the jungle and they had the communist guerrillas, whatever, and John Candy said, "Oh, I'd never be a communist." And they capture him, and the next scene is he's wearing the communist garb and complete communist and brainwashed and stuff. I mean, it was a joke on what they really did. Harris will be out here in California next year. She's going to show her face. That cackle. Okay, whatever. You know, when can we get some new blood in politics? And that's what I like about J.D. Vance. He's young. He's new blood. Can we get rid of these old fossils? I mean, even if you like Trump or Biden, right? Let's say you liked one of the two, right? That's the best the Democrats and Republicans have to offer in this new, energetic new world is a bunch of old men? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. You know, Democrats need to find somebody like JFK again. Whether he got in under suspicious, they cheated his way in or whatever, and if the Democrats cheated his way in, so Kennedy could become president, they realized they couldn't handle him after 2 years, and they had to get rid of him. Okay? But, you know. Oh, I've been going on for an hour. I got to get in. It's getting dark. I do agree we need younger people in Congress and president. And we need to get away from these families. Like the Bushes. We don't need Donald Trump Jr. running for president. We don't need Governor Newsom. I don't know how he could win anyway. All you got to see is how California is. Why would anybody want to sit there and want the rest of the country to be like California? I just don't know where the new blood is. You know, like when they rolled Barack Obama. You remember how they rolled him out? He did the opening address. What was that? The convention in the Democratic Congress or the Democratic National Convention in 2004. And 4 years later, they groomed him, sold him to the public, and 4 years later, he was president. Now, the Democrats ain't getting nobody out in the limelight, spotlight like that. They're just hating on Trump, hating on Trump. See, don't they realize they're not going to be running against Trump next year? They need to fall back, regroup, because we need a strong Democratic Party, one that isn't hijacked by the ones they got. But anyway, whatever it is, it's realize why they lost in 2024, and try to don't have an abortion van in the back of your national convention next time. That type of stuff. Okay. But anyway, where's the new blood? But they have Barack Obama out there. Who is the one they're grooming now? Nobody. There's nobody to groom because they're so focused on Trump. Trump. You ain't gonna have to deal with them in that 3.5 years. Anyway, AOC. Yeah, I don't know who are good. I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats try to roll out Liz Cheney if she's not in prison. That's possible too. Wouldn't that be a trip? In today's world, anything's possible, right? But anyway, we'll see if we even make it another 4 years. If Trump's going to keep sending us trillions of dollars in debt every year, let's see. Let's see if we can get to $45 trillion in debt before he's out of the office. Our future generations are going to hate us. We not only put them in so much debt, but we completely trashed the most prosperous and free country that there was. Okay? Trashed it. We weren't good stewards of our country for the future generations. Okay? Who does that to their kids? And you can say, well, I'm not personally doing it. Who allows anybody to do that to somebody's kids? Especially a government that's supposed to definitely not do that type of stuff. Anyway, that's all I got for this evening. Like I say, I'm going to go out, hit that like and subscribe and notification button if you would. Share the content. Let's get the word out. We need to stop this. We need to protect our unborn generations. Okay, we don't need to. This lifestyle we're living anyway is ridiculous, okay? It's not being prosperous at all. Not being productive. It's being destructive. And if they have a planet to still live on in 30 years because we haven't destroyed it, they at least need an economy that they can live in a society they can live in. Anyway, it's the millennials, and that hit me hard. Appreciate you saying who does that to their kids. Yeah. Who does that to their kids? I just want my kids to live a better life than me. That's what every parent wants. And when they see their future being robbed from them, it's hard. This is why I'm on YouTube. So I can express my opinions and say what's going on. So nobody can sit there and say, well, you did nothing. I trying. The YouTube algorithm is really chopping me and doing their stuff to silence me. But as long as my live stream keeps getting big and I keep getting subscribers and the channel grows, I don't watch my mouth or say stuff in a way where my channel doesn't get canceled. Maybe I can reach the right person that will be in the right position and be able to motivate a lot of people to do great things. I'm not saying I'm going to be the one doing great things, okay? But I feel I could be the one that motivates somebody, the right person, to do the right thing. Maybe the right person will hear the right message that has the charisma and be able to say it differently and better than I can. But whatever. Okay. We don't live in a country of prosperity anymore. We're not going to spend our way into prosperity. It never works. If it won't work in your home life, the government can't make it work either. Okay? And like I say, when the government completely falls apart and all those people that are in it have their places and they got their money and stuff, and all those people that are going to have to pay the consequences for their ridiculous spending. Okay? Anyway, there's going to be a lot of hate and discontent going around. Anyway, it looks like trickle-down economics and rebranded it. Trickle down. And you know why they need us to make more money? So they can make more money. Okay? Velocity of the money changing hands. And where does the money always end up? At the top. Because you know what? Everybody lives in a lifestyle that everybody's living 20% above their means. They're a slave to their job, and I won't live that life anyway. But the big guys aren't going to rule forever. Like I say, when we all get together, we realize who our enemy is. Our enemy will shit its pants. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow night. Everybody have a great night. This is Tom with the Hidden Truths channel. I'm out.